Good evening and welcome to Dog Talk. I'm Dan Camilleri.
And I'm Laura McKillop. We'd like to start by thanking Enduro for their ongoing support in bringing you our live weekly Q&A. Tonight we're fortunate enough to be speaking with Tim Hall from Valley Kelpies.
Tim will be picking who he thinks has asked the best question of the night, and they'll win a bag of Enduro high-energy food for working dogs with real kangaroo meat. How you going, buddy?
Yeah, good. Yourselves?
Not too bad, thanks. Actually, after the feed we just had, could probably have a nap, to be honest.
What, you've got to work a bit harder than work it off.
Oh, yeah, that's tomorrow's problem.
Yeah, nice, sweet.
The boss got into roast pork tonight. She outdid herself.
Damn, spoiled.
We are. Mate, how was your day?
Yeah, good. Just another day in paradise down here on the Big Island.
Love it. Over the ditch.
Over the ditch is where we are.
You guys been getting all that rain that everyone else has got the last month or so?
Yeah, look, we have. Probably not to the extent. I think we've probably had a couple of inches. But that's just going to set us up nice for that autumn break now. So.
Beautiful.
And so we'll jump into it. I believe you've had a bit of a different experience getting onto the land. Can you tell us a bit about that?
I obviously, I didn't, well, when I was a young fella, my grandfather had a farm on towards the east coast of Tasmania. And I used to obviously muck around with him. And then the country town that I grew up in wasn't a hell of a lot of employment. So I had to source employment elsewhere, which I took on a butchering apprenticeship. Obviously, coming from the country, always was skinning something or cutting something up. So butchering seemed to come pretty easy thing to come at. So, yeah, I went away and became a qualified butcher. And I worked at Coles supermarkets for 10 years. And then my wife, Emma, and I, we purchased a butcher shop. And we ran that for 5 years until the kids came along. And by that stage, I'd pretty much had enough of being indoors. And, yeah, wanted to get back out. And I suppose the next thing closest to me was working with livestock, not dead stock, I suppose.
And I know like a few younger butchers now, actually, while we're on that subject, and the actual trade's a lot different. I don't know if down there, but up here now, a lot of it already comes pre-packed.
Yeah,
but back in the day,
they're pretty much just carting cowboys now.
Yeah,
they just have a knife strapped to their side and just cutting boxes open. That was starting to come in when I left the supermarkets, but we were still breaking lambs and pigs. The beef was pretty much 80% coming box form. But once I slid out into the butcher shop, before Emma and I took it over, I worked there for 4 years with the previous owner, and that was still breaking all the bodies down.
And what made you go from butcher to working where you are now?
I gave up footy when we had the butcher shop, which was a big part, of what I used to do is your downtime. And we had a place with 5 acres, and I just started getting a couple of dogs and started breaking them in, and I was using that as my kind of downtime away from the butcher shop. And then I kind of set up a few lights over a training yard and just used to go from there. Like I'd come home and I'd go out and muck with young dogs for a couple of hours, but that was like tension release for me, from being in the shop all day. So, and it just kind of, as we all know, tell the same story. One dog led to 2, led to 3, and then, the neighbours weren't real happy only on 5 acres, so I had to make a decision, I suppose.
That was your pub time, mate, working dogs.
Yeah, it was so. Like, especially, come a Friday night or whatever, it's quite easy to slide a 6-pack beside the training pen and just go down there and have a bit of downtime and, just muck with some young dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you didn't really need to be at the pub for the meat raffle either, really, did you? So
no, that was to no value of me.
Yeah. So where are you now, mate?
Yeah, I'm at Conneville Station. I've been here just over 10 years now. as the head stockman to IC. So, yeah, obviously those that have tuned in before, when Adrian, he was on here a few months back, and it's a place about 42,500 acres. We run a bit over 12,000 merinos, finish probably 7,000 plus crossbred lambs out of our crossbred joining, and we have about 2,000 Angus cattle. About 1,600 of them are breeders, and the rest made up of bulls.
And-
enough to keep you busy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
well, I just work stock. That's all I do.
hmm
And that's exactly what I wanted to do, was just work stock day in, day out. And I'm fortunate enough with my job and, with the support from Adrian that I'm able to do that Monday to Friday.
Yeah. And you've been there straight from the butcher shop, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, mate. Yep. I was starting to trial one or two dogs when I still had the butcher shop. The conversation came up with Adrian, funnily enough, one night in the pub after a trial, and I said, I think I'm going to get out, mate, and go and give these dogs some real work and see if I can stand up to it. And one thing led to another, and I found myself here with Adrian, and 10 years has gone by.
Yeah, wow, that's pretty cool. First job off the rank, and you're still there a decade after.
Yeah, and I've been well looked after here, and I'd like to think that I'd done enough to pay them back for showing me. I was pretty green when I first came here, and things had changed from when I used to muck a bit on the land, and I suppose the rest is water under the bridge.
So having, I think you mentioned it was your grandfather that had a property when you were younger.
Yep.
And then being like watching it all at arm's length and being on the other side of the counter, so to speak, and then getting back into it. Where were your expectations and how they sit, and were you close to where you thought?
Yeah, obviously there was, you bought into two different, I suppose, ideas of, for 5 years I was buying stock to put into my shop, and I was a little bit surprised at the prices where I was going. Now being on the land where the prices have gone to, and they're slowly starting to come back, I probably think to myself, well, and obviously there's butchers doing it now, I had to pay what we've been paying, say, for the last 3.5 years, there wouldn't be a lot of profit margin. I think you'd have to work a bit of time in the dark, I reckon, to try and save some money.
Yeah.
Well, truly.
Absolutely. And have mentioned you've been there for 10 years now, mate. And you got your own young family there?
Yeah, I do. Yep. I've got my twins, Charlie and Ruby. They're 9, coming 10. So for anyone out there, I don't suggest selling everything and moving to a farm when your kids are 6 weeks old. little bit testy on my partner, but she's a trooper.
Well and truly. That's the ultimate test, isn't it, really?
Yeah, and I probably tested it as much as I think I will.
And I'm assuming there was a change in location of your living conditions as well.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's new home, new kids, new job.
Yeah, and
anything you didn't do was shed your skin.
Yeah, no, and I went bang, and our house is about 13.5 kilometres in on the property too. So to go and get the paper, you don't walk to get it. Put it that way.
Mm. And how did Emma handle the move, and did her job change at all?
No, well, she was in the butcher shop with me, and obviously, I suppose the decision was made that, look, as all good partnerships, mate, she put as much into the shop as what I did with because we ran a lot of stuff everything we made was in the shop. We made ourselves. And when obviously having twins, the time was pretty well occupied, and it probably made it better because it was flexible on the farm here that if something went pear-shaped, or I could duck back home.
Mm-hmm.
So I was always, probably within half hour to an hour of getting back home. So but luckily enough, it was all smooth sailing. It was a good decision by me.
And being at the same place for the decade now, what would Tim Hall today tell Tim Hall 10 years ago? What advice?
Well, don't be afraid to stuff up. Like, it's an old cliche, but you learn from your mistakes. Like, I think you're better to step out of your comfort zone and have a crack at something and not get it right than to stay within your shell and just, tuck yourself away. Like, if you've got a niggling itch, just go for it.
Great advice.
Awesome. So you had a few dogs before you moved to Connerville Station. Do you want to tell us a bit about your first dog?
Well, my actual first ever dog was back when my grandfather had his farm. And there's a lady here in Tassie called Irene Glover. And she's up in the Highlands, and she's pretty well known for her Smithfields. And Irene she's won quite a few Tasmania titles back in the 80s into the early 90s. She just had these big Smithfield dogs, and one day at a trial, she just said, "Here, Tim," and gave me this little ball of fluff, and I think I might have been 9 years old. And that was the start of it. And then obviously I kind of had to get out of them as I got older, and my grandfather sold the farm too because he was getting too old. And yeah, I like the Smithfield, but I've never got another one since.
So you've always had dogs around you then?
Yeah, I have, mate. Yep. Yeah, even when I was living in Launceston doing my trade and that, I had a staffy. I'd have a town. I'd have something.
Yeah.
So, and well, apart from the working dogs, we've got a sausage dog now.
Can't complain. We both do. We can't talk.
So what about these two that when you're in the shop, mate, these two dogs that you got you starting in trialing? What were they?
Yeah, they were the first one came from Matthew Johnson at Pandara Kelpies. Matthew's actually a cousin of mine, and he gave me a young pup, and I was actually still living in Launceston when I took her on, like just basic obedience training. And it worked out that we bought our place out at Westbury and moved out to a bit of land when she was 6 months old. And I kind of went from there. I started hunting, clearance sales and getting a sheep panel here and there. And all of a sudden I had a bit of a round yard and a bit of a race. And yeah, and then you kind of, like I said, I started going to a few dog trials of a weekend as my downtime and kind of saw where the dogs were at that stage. And like all young fellas, you go home and you want your dog to go exactly to that spot that good dog went that Saturday. And I just kept chipping away at it like that. And then I got another one when she was broken in by that stage, because I actually went trialing for 2 years with one dog before I came across another one that, was good enough to get round a trial or that I wanted to put on show. But it was 2 years with one dog. It got pretty testy.
Yeah. What were you going to say?
No, it's relating to this yet?
No. So when you first started with your dogs and started trialing, was there anyone that sort of inspired you and helped you get on your way?
Yeah, I think down here, Michael Williams, and he runs Bear Rock Kelpies. And unfortunately, Michael's had illness over the last 10 or so years, and he doesn't do it any trialing or breed dogs like he used to. But he was probably before his time down here in Tassie of the type of dog that Michael was breeding and what he could do with them, not only on a trial field, but in a farm scenario as well. They were big, strong types that, had a power of work in them. They were a type that they had a lot of presence about them. I'll never forget one trial, Michael stepped into the arena with this dog and he just jumped him over the arena, and the sheep were in the other end, and every one of those sheep just jumped straight out of the arena, and the dog hadn't moved. All he done was jump into the pen, not into a force pen, actually into the arena.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but he was Michael. Yeah, Willie was very good. Like, and he probably, I would say, set the standard and raised the bar of what you know was acceptable and what people were trying to achieve on a trial field.
Yeah.
And how actually, I suppose that's a question for later. We'll get into that a bit later, mate. So, do you have a style or a type of dog that you prefer?
Yeah, for me, I like a pretty positive dog. I like that dog that keeps coming forward. They're not for everybody, but I'd rather have that argument or conversation with that dog trying to take a little bit out of them than kidding to them for them to go in a situation. When you're working with them all the time, if you ask something of that dog, I want that dog to go there. I don't like to kid to a dog, whether it's to jump on the back of your ute or up a race or through a fence. That one that's really working for you, that's positive and keeps coming forward.
Yeah. And why do you like that?
I think it's probably suits me,
Yeah.
and it suits the work that I do.
Mhm.
Obviously, there's a lot of times where you just need a little bit of feel, a little bit of softness with them. But I find in my train of thought, what I'm trying to do is that generally comes about by the time they're 4-year-old to 5-year-old, when they really start thinking about what they're doing. But for that younger age, 9 times out of 10, I'm just smashing a heap of yard work at them and throwing them in every situation, whether they're suited or not at that stage. And at the back end, they just seem to calm down, and then all of a sudden, you might be heading that way to getting a close all-rounder or a biddable all-round type.
Mhm.
I'm going to grab that one.
This one or that one?
One on there.
This one.
Yeah.
So on that, Kate Jobs asked, what's the best dog you've ever seen work?
The best dog I've ever seen work. Wowee. That's hard. That's to put. Obviously, anyone in the trialing game at the moment, Kate herself has got as good a dog that I've seen that reads situations so well. He's a dog that he knows when to apply pressure, whether Kate tells him to or not, and he just reads his stock really nice, and he doesn't upset his stock if he's in close, but if Kate needs another gear, the dog seems to have it.
Mm-hmm.
He's one that jumps to mind pretty well. And Jeff McDougall's got a couple at the moment that I really like, and they're probably in the pocket for me with their positivity. And Jeff's got a good handle on them. And yeah, you probably need to be 6 foot, whatever, to keep them down a bit. But yeah, they're a couple.
You don't get much more positive than that ace of his, do you?
Love him. That's why I've got a pup by him in the team at the moment.
He's cracking.
Yeah, but yeah, no, they're and there are probably others that I've forgotten about. But yeah, just off the spur, that yeah, Kate only put that in until she wanted me to talk.
Oh, absolutely, loaded.
So on that, being in Tassie, how do you guys go about getting, seeing new dogs in a genetic pool? And I can imagine it, as much as there'd be a variety, it'd be a lot of closeness as well.
And trust in people too.
Mm.
Yeah, look,
outside.
Obviously, social media is not for everybody, and I see some good points and bad points with, and this is talking dog stuff with social media. But it probably does allow you to see some footage if people do videos at home. And obviously that's where a dog's in its most comfortable environment because it knows, generally where they are. So you get a bit of a look there. And it's, we probably struggle a little bit with the people because a lot of us have got the same, like just Adrian and I, we've got a very similar bloodline. So we're unlikely to go to each other's camp a lot because we've got half brothers, half sisters,
Yeah.
that type of stuff. But as we've found, like the last 7 or 8 years, I've been coming over the ditch a fair bit, and you meet great mates and great people, and then it kind of goes from there. All of a sudden, you're shipping pups in and out and things like that, and I've got good dog carters down here in Tassie now. They kind of know us, so
Yep.
yeah, that's about the way. As far as joining bitches and that, that's got whiskers on it because it's just too much work trying to get them there in the right. Yeah.
You're getting them over the boat and
Oh yeah. But anyway, yeah, and you've got to have a lot of trust in people too. If you start, sending your bitch and when she's, coming in season or whatnot. But there's a couple of people I trust to do it. But yeah, that's probably another level again.
yeah.
And while we're talking about your dogs, mate, do you want to tell us a little bit about your current team?
Yeah. I suppose the working team consists at the moment of 8 dogs. I had a bit of a thin out of things that weren't going. And yeah, I've got 8 dogs, 1 old retiree. I've got 1 dog left from when I first came to Connerville.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's been retired for 3 years now, I suppose, and he just gets better with age. I'm hoping it's going to rub off on me, but so I've got and the rest are just pups I'm breaking in. So there'd be 5 down there, young pups, 6-month-old types that I'm breaking in. Pretty much like everybody, everyone talks about that all-round dog, but I've just got probably tools of the trade, really. They all pretty much can do a job, but obviously some excel in certain areas better than others. And I think you've kind of got to have that to complement your team.
Mm-hmm.
So got black dogs.
Black dogs. Like your
No,
dark
I've got
dogs.
3 or 4 straight blacks. I got a straight black dog, and yeah, he's kind of worked out okay for me so far, and he's side 2 or 3 litters, and for some reason I've just kept the black pups out of each litter, so they'll have to change because they're too much alike.
And you mentioned earlier that you do like all of the yard work there as well, doing a fair bit of mustering as well, or how and you mentioned Adrian a few times there. How you guys tag team in different jobs if you're doing too much of one thing?
Yeah, I probably find myself in the sheep yards a hell of a lot, and with Adrian being the manager for a place this size, he's probably got to be pretty close to his phone all the time.
Yeah.
So he probably does more of the mustering, sitting behind a mob type setup, bringing them to the yards. And I'll be in there processing or, weaning or foot pairing, that type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I do most of the bush mustering with the bush weathers. We run 5,000 weathers out on bush runs. And that's, to me, that I love all stock work, but out in that bush that's probably near the best job to do. Like,
yeah,
we don't run them very heavy, so you might be only looking for 300 weathers in a 500-600 acre bush block, like, and you got to pick up 10 here and, tinker them along softly, and you have to recast your dog if you see another 10 and, stuff like that. And it's just enjoyable. It's a test for yourself, really, and your dog.
It sounds all right.
yeah, it
Sounds
cool.
testing.
And actually, in that bush plot, what are you doing? Are you just on a bike or you're on a horse? What are you doing?
No horse. Me and horses don't get along real good. I like to control the pace with my thumb. So generally on a 4-wheeler, and where areas where you can't get to, you may have to go on foot for a little bit, but not a hell of a lot. Generally, the 4-wheeler's got a pretty good bull bar on the front, and they can be a bulldozer and go over most things.
Yeah.
And 2, obviously, all your stock, because we run a few dry cattle through the bush too. they hear the motorbikes or whatever else, and generally you've only got one crack. If you get a look at them, you've got that crack at them. Otherwise, they disappear. And a lot of it's, sending your dog and having trust. Like you might see 8 or 10 sheep, and you put the dog out, and all of a sudden he might come back with 150. Things like that. You just got to have trust in your hound, I suppose.
Yeah. And you've said mostly black Kelpies seem to be in your team, but why Kelpies? Just what you started with, or?
Oh, I just think it's their overall hardness and their mindset. They seem to suit me better with the way they work, and yeah, just in their mindset, and you're pretty well able. Well, should if you're lucky enough to get them, there's that all round type or very close to.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to. Yeah, I don't. I've had a couple of goes with the collies, and no disrespect to them whatsoever, but the ones that I've tried just haven't suited me, and the direction that I was going in. So I've kind of just stayed with at the moment what seems to be working.
Yep. That's totally fair enough.
If it's not broken, why fix it, right?
Yeah, or just try and make it better.
Yeah. And was there an influential dog to get you where you are today, or a dog that was real memorable for yourself?
Yeah, look, once again, Adrian bred a litter 8 years ago, and he used a Gary White dog over a Kelvale bitch, and I got one of those pups, and I think I only had 2 or 3 dogs around me at that stage, and that dog probably showed me within my camp, like, of what I could get out of a dog.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been a cracker, and I threw that much work at him. It wasn't funny, just simply because I've actually built my team now around this dog because I had to, because the others weren't where I need to be for station dogs. And I just used him for absolutely everything. There wasn't a job that I never took him to. And unfortunately, he was really, really good at home, and he was okay on a trial field. Like, he won a dog of the year, but he was a little bit slow moving on 10 or 12 sheep. But it was, funnily enough, you'd never see that on 1,500 or, and I never saw him lose any stock in the bush. But when I'd get to a trial, his anticipation, he was just a little bit slow reacting on 10 or 12 sheep. And that's not making excuses for the dog, but was just him. And I never really talked him up a lot at trials or whatnot, because people saw that and, thought he was a slow moving dog. And that was fine, but I kind of knew what he was doing at home, Monday to Friday for me.
No, that's, yeah. But sometimes I think we all get a bit caught up on what we see on the weekend rather than what they're doing every day.
Yeah, for sure. And we all do it. We all judge dog on what's in front of you, and and everyone's got opinions. They're like buttholes. Everyone's got them.
That was the PG version. I wasn't expecting that. And you mentioned like trainability earlier. How important is something that's trainable or biddable for yourself?
Yeah, it is. I think it's very important. And everyone has their different ideas and methods of what works for training and, to be biddable and whatnot. But yeah, the dog's got to let you in. But yeah, you want the dog to let you in. But for me, I still got to have a lot of natural work there too. And like I said, I'd rather be fighting that dog for him to let me in harder than what it would be to piss him in his pocket to try and, boost him up. Like, he probably goes down the road, that dog, pretty quick.
I was just going to ask, how much time are you putting into your training and selecting when you're working as much as you are?
Yeah, look, still to this day, I use the training yard that I've got set up here now at Connerville as my downtime.
Yep.
I'm a believer that if you've got a pup and you want to train your pup, you go train your pup. I don't follow a set age or time schedule or anything like that. The only thing that I often do is if you've had a shit day at work or whatever, don't come home and let your pup out and take your frustrations there. But yeah, no, even if I've been foot pairing, when we get going, we foot pair here for about 6 or 7 weeks straight. And I'll still come home and, let all the other dogs out for a run and then turn the lights on in winter because I've got lights set up here and let a young pup out. And sometimes it might be just taking a fold-up chair and sitting in the yard and just let this little pup do his thing, like let his instinct come out and just watch him.
Yeah.
And for me, everyone's different, and then once that starts, yeah, I probably go to them 3 or 4 times a week. Yep.
Nice. And you mentioned there like a couple of times now, like foot pairing and whatnot. So you guys are doing a lot of the work that a lot of other people contract out?
Yeah, we do everything in-house. Yep. The only thing that we contract out is our landmarking.
Yep.
But we did do our crossbreds. A lot of workers jumped in, did our crossbreds ourselves, and then we just got someone in for our merinos. But but we do everything ourselves. Like, so generally, we do for the foot pairing that occurs through a peak heel machine, and I'll have another bloke with me, and he'll be doing the front wheels, and I'll do the back wheels and just work with dogs all the time. So generally, if that's a setup, I'll probably run 3 dogs and have one holding the tail up, one back and inside the race, and then just one on the outside to punch that last sheep into the peak hill or the next sheep coming. So they got to be, by the end of that, you get a fair indication if your dogs are working for you and how tough they are because they're on the mesh, and we foot pair everything from big bush weathers through to ewe lamb hoggets, so it's a fair variation.
Yeah.
And where I was leading with that, your dogs really are doing everything on the station, right? Like
yeah.
They're getting tested.
Yeah. And then you flip over and you go and muster 450 cows in. We'll go calf marking for the next day. So the cows, you probably sit behind cows and calves having arguments with them for 2 hours at a time where you've come from right out the back. And so, yeah, you've got to, I do probably ask a fair bit of them, but yeah, they love it.
You try and save those jobs for earlier in the week in case you go on trialing of a weekend. You don't want to be doing that on the Thursday or Friday?
No, a lot of the times trialing just occurs like what gets done Monday to Friday. That's the main. That's why I've got my dogs. I wouldn't have a dog in my camp that is only a trial dog. If he can't handle Monday to Friday, even if he is looking like being a good trial dog, unfortunately, he goes down the road.
Yeah. Yep. And on that, you've mentioned a few times, going out and starting pups after work. What sort of age and process are you taking to do that?
Oh, mate, if I've got an 8 or 10 week old pup that's just landed or I've bred, he'll get a look at the sheep. It might only be for 2 minutes, or it could be a Sunday afternoon when you just get him out, because I have my kids interact with all my young dogs all the time, and even pups that I breed here, as soon as they're born, the kids are in the back of the whelping box, looking at the pups straight up. So that's how I operate. But yeah, no, they get a look 8 to 10 weeks, and then there's no, I don't try and shape them or balance them or any of that stuff for ages yet, but just put them in that situation, and if you go and back down, if you got to go and shed up late of a night or whatever and grab a pup, take him with you, just let him be in the area. He doesn't have to be near stock or in a situation where he could get hurt, but they don't learn anything staying in the pen, or they learn how to bark.
And what kind of stock are you showing them when it's time to start doing a bit? When you see a spark there?
Yeah, I generally have merinos up here. And once again, each their own, but I pretty much would probably go 3 months and then I'll swap my trainer sheep out and get fresh ones in. And if I've got, that's 3 or 4 younger ones that, that 16 week to 20 week old or whatever, you generally probably only got, merino ewes, younger ewes, and you're probably just putting 2 sheep in the pen, that's not going to hurt them, but just have enough free wheel that, excites them.
Yeah. And so you're doing all that, and you said you don't really expect them to do much shaping or balancing straight away. You're just getting that spark in them. When do you sort of know that the pup's then ready for that next stage?
A lot of the time, I like to go into the pup training area, and obviously you've just got yourself up against the fence, and without saying too much at all, just walk across to the other side of your training area. And if your sheep are quiet, 9 times out of 10, they'll lift off where you're walking to. But if I see that pup tuck in behind them and he's doing his absolute best to draw them sheep to where I am, and I'll just go to that next flat fence and just stand there and look back. And if that pup's coming there, well, I just keep him going at that without any pressure on him. I think the main thing that I do is we always seem to be very quick to chastise young dogs, and young dogs obviously do need chastising at certain periods, but we seem to be a little bit light on encouragement. We're quick to yell or block him or stop him from doing something wrong, but I go as much the other way to really praise him up if something's right. Like we always seem to look to the negatives so much. But that's just my opinion.
No,
cool.
I
think that's a very Aussie thing to do, to look to the negative anyway. So
I wanted to touch on that. So are you saying like you'll kind of like ignore some of the unsavory stuff, and then when he does something good, what do I say here? Your inner gay Mickey Mouse comes out, and you're like, hey, you're making a big deal about things, or
yeah, for sure. Because like I said, I like to deal with them harder headed younger pups. And they probably do take a little bit more deep breaths and sighs at a young age, because they are testing. But that's the line and the choice that I make, and you just got to keep, telling yourself that that's the type of dog it is, and and it's more so, I suppose, trying to just to build that bond early with him, that he can get a little bit of trust in you even at a young age, that you're not going to stretch him every time you get near him.
Yeah. And then you go.
No.
I was just going to say, you've mentioned like how you like a stronger dog and all of that. How do you go about identifying that strength in a dog, or does it come with age and experience for you?
Oh, yeah, look, strength's another thing. Everyone's got different opinion of what strength is. But probably...
Well, what is it to you then? We sort of haven't...
Strength is not that dog that's coming in causing an argument all the time and then, tries to back it up, then he's out the back door. Sometimes strength, I don't know, sometimes strength and feel can be very similar in how they're reading something, and the strength of their mind might be that they want to walk forward to cause an argument, but they hold themselves back because they feel the stock, and if they let that just go, the stock rolls over, or rolls forward off them. But yeah, and sometimes I look at strength in a dog too is if that dog's not 100% wanting to go to that situation you've asked, but he still puts himself there. Like, to me, strength can be that within a dog. But everyone has their different opinion. Then you've got your walking strength, you know, eye and eye to a crossbred ram, or, you know, busting in to break up two bulls fighting and that type of stuff. But I think that's one of them things, like feel. Every person you talk to will have a different opinion of how they rate it.
Yeah, yeah. A couple of those I've sort of been, I've just lost what I was going to say. I'm so sorry. I was trying to say, you've sort of answered. Rick Freeman's asked a few questions, and you've sort of answered some of them. But he has one here, and you've half answered it. But there's sort of a little bit more to his question. He's asked, if you were training a pup or a young dog, how do you gauge it, if you can train it each day, or if it needs more slow pace? Or in other words, what signs are there that you might be putting too much pressure on the dog?
Oh, straight up, the demeanour of the pup. Like if you let your pup out of the yard and he's all happy or whatever else, and you clip him on the lead to take him to your training, and you look down and you see the demeanour in the pup's changed, or he's not, especially if he's a young age, if he's not, in a sense, ripping his arm off to get to where the sheep are, or I'd be tucking him away, you know, for whatever period. And when it's tucking away, that just means away from stock, you know, not away from yourself. I still like to interact with them, because all pups, I think, they change 4 or 5 times throughout when they start. The instinct comes out to where they finish up, not as a mature dog, but probably as a dog that starts to come to work. But if you're, last thing you want is your pup sour. Like, I think it's just spending enough time with your young dogs. You should be able to pick up if they're still enjoying it, or you don't want it to become a chore at a young age for them.
Absolutely. And on that, do you spend any time training away from stock? Now you got your couple of your young kids there.
I don't do any dry training. I've seen some people do it. Obviously, there are some that once again have had success, but I see a lot of people that come and the dog will sit and come and all this type of stuff, and then you throw a few sheep around and it just goes out the window. It's just like, you know. So no, I do it once, or try to do it once, and that's with stock involved. Obviously, the basic of you want the pup to come to you, or at least attempt to come to you. You know, when you're letting him out overnight or morning, or however you do it, off stock. But other than that, throw the sheep in and just let it all go pear-shaped together.
So in other words, you're saying you do have basic obedience, but not to the fact of, you know, you can sit a dog 20 meters away before you've even shown it stock.
Yeah, no. Don't come to me if you want a puppy show.
Yeah. No, that's cool.
There's no handshakes or roll over, kiss my belly, anything like that.
And obviously they're well socialised with the kids, so the kids are just mucking around with them, leading them around a little bit here and there, calling them around, so they're already building a bit of bond, rapport and relationship there.
Yeah, and especially when the kids were younger. Anyone that's got young kids know that, God damn, dogs have got to have rubber bones with little kids. Like.
Yeah.
And I probably had to, and my whole team have to be like that, because, you know, Em and the kids, they'll go and feed the dogs for me if I'm ducking off to footy training, or if I get home late and all this type of stuff. The dogs that didn't come to work, like, you got to have trust in your team. And many a time I can still see my young daughter tipping, you know, nuts into the bowl and just swirling them around with her hand while the dog's eating out of the bowl. Like, so you've got to. They're just kind of, I suppose, temperament and attitude type dogs that I needed in my camp that I could trust.
Yeah.
And grab it.
There's another question here from Rick, and it's back onto what you were saying about commands and putting that on once on stock. So he's on to the next part from there is, at what point in a dog's training do you put commands on them? He says, I know you might not have an exact age, but what are you looking for before you want to get them into knowing sides, working off balance, etc.?
Yeah. Look, that's hard, because, like, once again, it's a bit of a cliche, but every pup's different.
Yeah.
And I think by starting off, if you want to put some distance between the stock and your pup, by rousing them off a little bit and just reading the demeanour of the pup when you do things like that to see whether its mind's ready, to handle, sides. But for me, once they start balancing up and being able to lift, your few training sheep off a fence, it's just repetitively just saying whatever command is that side. And obviously, we're half mooning them or blocking them up and sending them, left over to your right or vice versa. I think it just can generally grow from there. If you see the pup enjoying, trying to catch the head and not just tailing and that type of stuff, well, you'll find yourself just repeating your commands to go that way. And that's the best way that I've found, to put sides. Not that my dogs have beautiful sides on them. Sometimes they go to the wrong side and I have to say the other way. But yeah, that's how I would look at it.
Love the honesty.
Oh, mate, there's no use bullshit because
No, there isn't,
No,
is
that's
it?
it. That's it.
It's on you forever if you do anyway.
Yeah.
And doing a lot of your foot pairing, a lot of your yard work, mate. Backing. There seems to be a bit of a thing all over social media here and there. People have their different ages, mate. Obviously, it's not something you want to push on a young dog. But if you see a young dog that wants to go, do you encourage that, or do you, if it's too young, do you put it away and let it mature? How do you approach that?
No, I definitely don't put it away. If it's a young pup and just for instance, while we're talking, the young pup that I've got off Jeff McDougall, she just is jumping straight on their backs already. Now, I'm not encouraging. Pardon?
How old is she?
She'd be 6 months now.
Yes,
I suppose,
baby, yeah.
And she, I was drenching the other day, and she come all the way up the drench race, and I don't know what the drench race fits in, 50 sheep, and just got smashed all the way back. And I wasn't encouraged or whatever, but I did take her out of that situation because she's such a hard sound pup that I left her there, and she worked it out after a while that not to come all the way up to the front to me while the race was being filled. But more to the point, I'd probably look at ways of how to keep that pup on the ground. And that's her natural instinct for this one is to back. So when I'm playing around in the training yard, I don't go in the force pen at all with her. She's shown me straight up that that's going to be natural to her. So it's more just outside, keeping her off, getting her to, lift your trainers off the sheep, out of the corners. My training, I don't have a round yard or anything. I've got corners in my training yard. I like corners. And it's just, and I just put her in that situation more. But yeah, I definitely, for younger ones, I would say there's no need to encourage it. But I definitely wouldn't be tucking her away, if that's the right wording. I'd just be putting her in different situations to try and just to keep her feet on the ground for a little bit longer, because sometimes a dog can use up on pop as an out.
Yep. Yeah, it's true as well.
Yeah. No, I like that. I like your thinking behind that. And
do you work outside of a race at all?
Yeah, I do. Yep, because we the setup at work is we have a dual lane feeding to a Clipex and another dual lane that feeds to a Peak Hill. Both those machines are really good if you've got one that works the outside of the race as well. I still have a dog backing inside, but I have one that comes on the outside just to pierce that next sheep going into both machines. And that one on the outside can and is just as effective and does just as much work, because I don't allow them to camp on the outside. Once she's done her job, she's got to woof back past every sheep in the race and then tip back in and hold the tail up. So it's not an outlet for an easy option.
While we're on the topic of backing, Kate's just asked, how important is a cracking top knot to you?
I tell you what, a cracking. She should know because her husband's got a cracking top knot. Well, that's a bun, isn't it?
That's fine.
Yeah, look, I'm a big fan of it. A big fan.
The man
And
bun
obviously-
or a top knot?
What was that? Sorry.
The man bun or the top knot?
Oh, he's a big bloke, so I better say the man bun as well.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I use at work a top knot all the time when you're drafting, and it's just educating, I suppose, your dog to hit the right sheep, and they don't always get the right sheep. But it is a tool when you're dealing with a lot of stock that is so handy in the yards, and I've seen dogs be effective. It could be 5 o'clock at night and the tank's just about empty, and you've still got, you might have 800 ewes or something that you got to bash through a draft and draft up, but that dog can go to the front and scruff a good top knot and let him go, and all of a sudden shit's happening. Yeah. So, Kate, it is a good tool if it's used properly, not out in the arena.
Well, actually, on that, a dog that at a trial that is hitting your race and constantly use top knots, even if it's not required. What's your take on that?
Yeah, look,
When you're walking up the race and as you're opening the gate, that dog grabs that first or second sheep.
I don't mind that.
Yeah.
Some people look at that as unnecessary, but
Yeah.
to me, that's making sure that sheep's coming out of the race.
Yeah.
And with the trialling game at the moment, so many judges are, I'm giving you 3 seconds once you've flicked that chain on that, say for instance, that front drench race. Sometimes you see dogs that have tried a lot, they know to come up to empty, but they hear the chain and all of a sudden they're heading back towards the back of the. And to me, well, if we're still trying to stimulate what happens on a farm, I mean, you'd be up that dog if you was home and sheep weren't coming out of that race.
Yeah.
You have to start man-handed. So, yeah, I don't mind that, but just I suppose like anything, top knotting in the wrong spot is just the same as a bite. But if you are good enough and able to train it, when you want it, I reckon it's a valuable tool in your trade.
Yeah, absolutely. They're all a bit later.
Yeah.
Two more there.
Oh, there's one here about cast. So Rick's asked, how much can you improve a cast with training rather than the dog's natural genetics?
Well, it's a good one for you. You said that dog you got in changed a lot for you because of his groundwork and getting out, and I'm assuming that dog probably casted a bit more than what you're used to.
Yeah, and it came with age. It probably showed me how, once that dog matures over that 4.5 years of age, that when they're probably thinking a little bit more for themselves. Cast's very important, and once again, everyone has different ideas of casts and their shape, and it can also be the type of stock that you're working. Obviously, you'd like that nice wide cast on your paddocks, but to me, it's probably a command of look back that you can put on your dog halfway out, or a stop halfway out on its journey is probably more important than that big looping cast from when it leaves your side or the ute or something like that. Just simply because if you're working cattle, that big loopy cast is not worth a cracker because the cows are gone another kilometre down the paddock on you if you know cattle. But if you put a stop halfway or a quarter way or a look back or whatever you want to use, can be a valuable thing to have on your dog. But to ask to Rick, I think you can help a dog out with, trying to get them to cast wide. And obviously with a younger dog, putting yourself in between the dog and the sheep and, or having couple of obstacles in your training pen or small paddock that the dog kicks out round before, like in a V section or something before it can get to its stock. But that's once again the genetics, I suppose, of your dog and knowing your dog.
I really like how you explain that, and I really like how you mentioned that look back, because how frustrating is it when you're in a smaller paddock and you can see your stock, like let's sort of sheep for this example here, and you're only just over there, and the dog's gone over the fence that way and it's gone over the fence that way, and like I just open this gate and push these through before the dog's going to get back.
Yeah, for sure. And sometimes that can occur in the bush even. If you can see the sheep, and a lot of times you need it pretty direct to take the ground off them, and then probably a bit of a teardrop once you get closer to. But if they're knocking the droppers right off from the start, well, a lot of the time those sheep have gone out of sight and they're laughing on the other side of the bank, sticking their finger up saying, "You blokes are shit."
Mate, we touched a little bit on breeding there. You breeding many pups for yourself?
Look, I'm not. I probably have maybe 1 or 2 litters a year, and that'd be the extent of it. And they're just what I wanted to, to see how they would produce. I've probably just started to get a few different lines into my camp, because I've probably bred out of the bitches that I've got here that I like. But I'm pretty critical on the bitch. I set myself up to have pretty hard-headed bitches, and I like those types to breed out of, because I think there's a very good dog nearly on every corner. Mm-hmm. But in our bitches, just that, I suppose, harder, grittier type. And I'm lucky enough, I've got a little bit of a firecracker here, and I've bred 2 litters out of her. And their eldest he'd be 2.5, so he's just starting to shape up okay. He's a big dog, and I think he's probably filled 3/4 of his head space at this stage. He's got a little bit further to go.
Yeah.
So you're saying a hard-headed bitch is sort of what you like before you breed from it. Is there anything else they have to tick?
I just think you've got to like their work ethic and what they do. I'm not at the stage where I'm joining a bitch that's unbroken or whatever just because she's by, state champion out of a guru or whatever. Like, you've really got to like, especially the bitch and what she's doing, and then obviously, as we all do, try and match up the dog and and take it from there. But yeah, but that's just my opinion. Like, I just feel that, and I'm making the bitch prove herself too, and that's standing up to day in, day out work, and obviously she's not. You don't want her to grind your gears too much because you don't want 2 of them, but. But that's what I'm basing myself on at the moment.
So would that be fair to say attitude is probably your biggest attribute?
Yeah, probably is, mate. No. You could be pretty good at most things, but if you're a sooky bastard with your tail up your bum, you're not hanging around.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, not when you've got a lot of work to do.
No.
Like, you don't have your 7 minutes there, right? Like you're out there making things happen.
Yeah, and look, it's definitely not bash or crash or anything like that. And you look after the stock, and you don't have lunatics in your camp or whatever, but you've just got to have that one that is going to be the same at 7 o'clock in the morning to what it is at 5 o'clock that night, just to give you the same input.
Yeah. And when you say match up dogs and bitches, are you talking genetics or like characteristics?
Like for like, or
characteristics.
Yeah. I'll probably go like for like first. And once again, the old book face is pretty good. You can get the family tree ripped up. Sue and that do a fantastic job. But yeah, it's more, probably like to start with, and just go go from there.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you think the bitch has any more over the pups or any beliefs on that?
Oh, look, that's once again, I love to see when they bring out the science and all that
Yeah.
on the book face with these answers. And wow, but yeah, look, I'm not 100% sure, mate. I really, that's above my pay grade, but I'm just kind of basing my train of thought on, if she's a pretty solid bitch and she has a fair crack, let's see if we can't produce.
Yeah.
So you got your whole litter of pups there sitting on the ground. They're 8 weeks old. How does Tim Hall pick his pup?
That little bastard that's hard to catch, he's one that stays about. Yeah, look, I think, and so many people are probably the same, you generally don't smile at that little shy bloke that's at the back. He probably, and people may say he's probably the thinker or, the one that's going to have the best feel on his stock or what. But, yeah, I don't mind that one that's a bit up in your face or a bit hard to catch. Like, I kind of, when you throw him on stock, if that little bloke is sticking his finger up to you and he's hard to catch when the sheep are around, he probably goes in the first pen available.
Yeah.
And what advice would you give to someone wanting to purchase their first dog or pup?
Have a little bit of an idea of what work is going to be presented to you as far as why you've gone out to purchase this pup. And I think have a chat to the breeder from where you're going to get it from, and just go with it. Like, everyone will come to a litter and someone will like a pup. Like every litter you go to, you take a shine to a pup, and just go with that. Like, for sure, do some background, on what previously the person's bred or how if it's a repeat mating or something like that. But yeah, go with your gut. If you know you're doing a heap of yard work that's going to be for your next 6 months while you're stepping into the livestock industry or something, well, obviously just chase the yardie lines a little bit just to help you out.
Yeah.
And like having such a small pool, you'd buy a couple of pups yourself, like from the mainland. How much trust are you putting into the people you're buying pups from, that they're telling you their dogs are the way they are?
Yeah, you probably are a lot. I've generally, what I've purchased so far, I've had at least 2 or 3 looks at them, maybe only on a trial field. But just general, I think you pretty much tell when you generally talk to someone, whether they're pissing in your pocket or they're genuine type people. Like,
yeah.
And I suppose it's like everything in life, you roll the dice a little bit, and if it turns out nothing what they say, well, you make a phone call.
Yeah. And like you've said before, you've come over here a couple of times a year. So you're seeing those dogs and hearing stories, I guess, and about people and about their dogs before you even consider looking at pups.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. And once again, social media, you can work that to your advantage, especially, I suppose, for us being this side of the ditch. And you get a little bit of a mindset or an idea of what you think, how that dog is.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not always, and once again, it's only personal preference, you're not always impressed when you see the dog in the flesh, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But you probably got to keep in mind, to be fair to them, you've got to have seen probably 4 or 5 times when you can only see on a trial situations before you really sum him up, I reckon. On different stock too, like different breeds and types.
Yeah, absolutely. So, mate, we've touched on trialing today, mate. How long have you been trialing? And no, I'm not stealing someone's question. No. And when was your first trial?
I think I actually had my first trial with my grandfather's dog when I think it might have been 10 years old. At a little local trial, I borrowed his dog, and yeah, I got a little trophy for that. I don't think there was anyone else in the category. And then I stepped away for, what was it? About 18 years, I reckon, give or take. And then I got back into it. But I probably, last 10 years, I suppose, I've started trialing, and probably, well, like everyone, got that real competitive edge 6 or 7 years ago. And I think that's what drives us too. Like, it's funny, you talk to people about trialing and they, oh no, I'm just there for the run or whatever. Like, that's bullshit, mate. Everyone's got that competitive edge. Like, I love everybody in the trialing game, but you're there to beat every single person that you step out that arena for. You're there to win. Like, and afterwards you step off, you have your moment. If your dog's gone bad or you've stuffed up, then you get over it and you go and have a beer or a cordial with them and, enjoy the atmosphere. But when people start saying, oh, I'm just here to go, like, no, mate, everyone's a competitive beast when it comes down to it.
Definitely. I agree with that. Daniel probably doesn't.
Yeah,
We've had this conversation.
I'm massive
lots.
competitive. I go to make a final. I don't get necessarily to win, but I go to make a final because
that's
a final.
Mate,
I know I'm consistent, and that's why I go to try. I go to trials to make finals.
Yeah, for sure.
Winning to me is a bonus, but I want to make finals.
Yeah.
That's my benchmark is to try and make a final.
That's still competitive.
100% competitive.
Yeah.
But I don't go to win every time because I'd be disappointed a lot.
Yeah, and I'll say, like, to win, obviously everyone has disappointed and expectations, but you know yourself when you're out there what you and your dog can do.
Yeah.
And, like, I can't beat Kate's Cruise, and I've tried everything with 2 different dogs, and I still can't get over. But, I walk off satisfied because, I've had a good run, but it's your competitive drive that makes you want to get better, makes you want to beat these dogs, makes you want to, you want the blue ribbon to come into your house, like.
Yeah. So is that why you trial, or is that just part of the reason why you trial?
No, that's definitely only part of it. I absolutely love the atmosphere. I love the people involved, and I love the after party might be the word. The get together and that type of stuff. But it's also testing yourself, and testing your dogs. Everyone's got a champion at home, and I don't doubt that. But it's putting what you think is a good dog out there on show for other people to judge. And sometimes that can be very hard for people, not to accept, but to allow happen, that someone else is going to have a critical word about your dog or whatever else. And, and I think sometimes that's what scares people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think probably more often than what people think, to be honest.
Yeah, because you're putting yourself out there to be judged as an overall package, as you as a handler, your dog, like, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a question here from Ash Mayburn. She's asked, what is your favourite trial to go to and your most memorable experience trialing?
If you remember
it. Well, there's been a couple. I love the Australian Yard Championships. I've been lucky enough now. I've been to 5 or 6 of those. And that's just a great week. Or 4 days, 5 days or whatever. And, she's on for young and old, and you're all there, you're either there representing your state or there to try and push yourself into the top 25 and then into the top 10. But it's just an overall, and you've got 4 or 5 days generally. So 9 out of 10, you're camping with other trialers and campfire gets going because there's a lot of good dogs around the campfire after 9 o'clock. A lot of good ones. But yeah, no, the Australians would be, and I do enjoy Bendigo. I've been to Bendigo, lucky enough to tie that in with work. And I've been to Bendigo the last 4 or 5 years, I reckon. But sometimes Bendigo nightlife does suck you in.
Sounds like a good one to go
Yeah.
to.
And your most memorable achievement?
Obviously, I've been lucky enough. I've won 3 Tassie titles, open ones with 2 different dogs, and just recently I was lucky enough to run 3rd in the Australian Yard Dog Championships at Mansfield. That was my highest place that I've placed in an Australian. So they were, they're probably just little ones, or they're stepping stones to where you're trying to get to.
Congratulations on that 3rd
Yeah,
place too,
awesome.
mate. There's a big field there.
Yeah, it was, and there were some top dogs and obviously Joe put runs together. That was the score said it all, and all congratulations to him. He's a fierce competitor and does a great job. And then that freaking Cruise was above me again.
I was going to say, you didn't get her that time.
Nah, she's lucky I love her.
Mate, what about other forms of trialling away from the yards? You get into any cattle or?
No, we don't actually do any cattle down here in Tassie.
No?
Yeah, and it's something I don't mind it, that's for sure. I haven't had much of a go with the 3 sheep trialing. That doesn't really, spin my wheels a lot. And I enjoyed the utility. I did an Australian utility when I was down in Tassie last year, and I did have a couple of runs up at Mansfield with not a lot of joy whatsoever. But I did enjoy it, and the utility stuff is another form, I suppose, of showcasing the ability of your dog. But I definitely wouldn't shy away from doing a little bit more of that in the future. I'd have to get a lot better myself, handling my dogs through those type of obstacles just with 3 or 5 sheep. But heck, if you're not trying to learn or improve, what are we doing? So,
Love it.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, do you get nervous at all?
I used to. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I'd just say you probably still do have, a few butterflies before you push the gate open or whatever else. But, I think you kind of, once you've done it for a little bit, you know that if it does go pear-shaped, catch your dog and jump out of there. It's not as if you got to sit there and go through the drooling pain until the buzzer goes. Right? And I think if you tell yourself that, it might help you. Like, shit, mate. If you're not comfortable or you see the dog or whatever, get the hell out of there. Like,
Yeah.
But I think, and you put nerves on yourself when you want to go well too. Like, and that's probably comes back to, your competitiveness. Like, nothing worse. Say for us guys traveling over, and then we have 2 or 3 dogs, and they all go shit house or whatever, and then people turn around and say, "Well, geez, Tassie come all this way," and that's what they've come with. Things like that. You probably may play on your mind from time to time.
Actually, mate, we just lost you for a sec there, but you're back now. Mate, you touched on something there, and that was, you don't have to wait for the buzzer. What about when you have a young dog out there and things aren't going great, but the dog's trying, and do you ever just pull up and go, you know what, right now, the dog's going all right, but rather than put a bit more pressure on it, let's pull him up and put him back in his kennel, give him a pat, and
absolutely. If you see, especially when you've got a young dog and he's gone to that right position, and for whatever reason, things haven't gone forward or you haven't been able to process on, instead of you getting hot under the collar and that dog, he's done exactly what you asked him that first time, but, there might be a little thing that the dog might have missed or something. I would not hesitate to say thank you very much for your time and out you go. I'd rather do that with a young dog than stay there and keep persisting. If you think he's learning, okay, that's your opinion. But and then all of a sudden when you go to him, you're hot under the collar and you scruff him pretty hard by the collar or whatever, and he feels your heat straight up, well, he's going to associate that area is not real fun to be in. And it is his first trial. He's probably getting used to people everywhere and different noises, things like
Catching
that.
the head, doesn't want to let go of the head or just something like that. And
yep, exactly.
All these little things happening,
Yep, for sure.
And that's some good advice, mate. So there you go. You don't have to stay out there for your 7 minutes. Anyone listening back today, if you're uncomfortable, you see you're not gonna be real successful, call it quits. Give your dog a pat and put him or her away, and come back out a little bit later.
Yep, that's exactly what I've tried to do. As long as you can catch it.
If you can catch it, there's half the start.
Yeah, sometimes that's the hardest bit, isn't it?
Yeah, it can be.
Mate, and you've already touched on this one, but I do just want to touch on it again, mate. We hear the debate that trial dogs don't make work dogs. What's your take?
And I can only speak obviously for the yard trial side. I can't speak on 3 sheep, that type of stuff, because I'm not experienced. Well, I haven't done that type of stuff. For me, I simply don't get the gist when people say advertise their breeding or whatever, that they're breeding good farm dogs, not trial dogs. Now, in my eyes, like, whatever I'm breeding and friends of mine are breeding that do trial, they're breeding dogs that can do a job Monday to Friday. I read that other part as a bit of a cop-out, that whatever that bred hasn't made a trial or anything like that, because you're breeding something that can stand up Monday to Friday work, and then the scheme of it, you're probably just putting the finer points to them to be able to compete on a weekend.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right, and that's how I read it. Like, and it goes both ways. Like, dogs that I'm breeding and other people might never make trial dogs. They just make honest farm dogs. But you're not going to sit and advertise that I'm just breeding trial dogs, not farm dogs, and vice versa. Like, yeah, I take that as a bit of a cop out.
Yep, beautiful. Any advice to someone wanting to get into the ag and working dog industries?
Ask questions. Chew the right people's ears off. That's what I'd say.
How do you find the right people?
Pardon?
How do you find the right people?
The ones that are not going to talk bullshit just because it sounds good.
Yeah.
Ones that'll be honest with you. Like, see a lot of people, they talk a lot of different stuff up and it's just crap. Like, but I would say for any young person, don't go home with your head full of unanswered questions or unasked questions.
Yeah. So I think was it Scott the other week that said you're interviewing them as much as you're interviewing them?
Yes.
Not when you speak. I think I said that wrong, but
yeah.
I know.
That was for a job interview, but it's same
kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Very cool. And mate, who would you like us to sit down and have a chat with?
Oh, on the dog talk.
Yep.
On the dog talk.
On the dog talk.
On thy dog talk. I'd actually, if his health allowed it, I'd love Michael Williams from Bear Rock Kelpies down here in Tassie.
Yep.
I'm not sure where, but as a, like I said earlier, as a pioneer and a person that probably inspired, myself, and I would no doubt think many others. And, Michael stepped away from it for a little while, but obviously it'd be great to hear, what it was like 10 years ago or whatever, 11 and I think Michael, he might have won 9 Tasmanian Opens or something like that. And there's one stint there where Michael, he won it with a dog and then won it with that same dog again, like 8 years later or something like that. It was unbelievable.
Wow.
But he'd be one person if he was up for it.
Ah,
Yeah, awesome.
awesome.
Sounds
Okay.
like a plan.
Try that, mate. Was there a question that stood out for you this evening, and I'll win a bag of Enduro high energy food for working dogs with real kangaroo meat?
Oh, look, well, you probably was it Ashley that asked what trial did I like
Yep.
most?
Yeah.
Yeah, just because she made me remember about Bendigo.
Well,
That was
yeah, beautiful. Well, Ash, get in contact with us. Get those details off you. And we'll get that bag of Enduro off to you.
Also, one coming your way there, Tim. So I'll grab your details a bit later. I got most of them there, and get a bag off to you as well.
Sweet.
One last question, as always. Would you rather fight one duck the size of a horse or 20 horses the size of ducks, and why?
I've had more hidings than I've had victories, so oh. Yeah, I don't know. You've got me stumped on that. I'd say open the gate and just send them at me.
Whatever comes out.
Yeah.
Love it.
Love it, mate. Thank you very much for your time tonight. Really enjoyed chatting with you, mate. And that got a bit sketchy there a bit earlier when your laptop went for a drive. So thanks for grinning in. And
you just got to handle any situation, don't you?
Yeah, well, that's it.
love the dedication, mate, and 100%. And to all our viewers and people listening back, thank you for listening in. And please remember, we learn every day, and the day we stop learning will be a sad one for all of us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, mate.